want to live a life on fire and on mission. You want to be filled with such conviction and drive that you stop caring about what anyone thinks. You want to face each day alive, authentic, and fully present in every moment. With your wife, with your kids, on the street, at work. You want to bring yourself to the table and to stop bringing the watered down, nice, what everyone wants version of you. You want that self to be a man who is burning in passion for Jesus, unafraid to bring his kingdom to anyone in your path, no matter what it costs you. You want to love the one in front of you without fear, without needing love back, and without reserve. You want to husband well. You want to father well. You want to shepherd your life well. You want to be a safe pillar for anybody around you. You want to experience God for real, to not just believe, but to know that he's got you and that he'll show up on your behalf, that he'll show up through you. You want to get to the end of your race and say, yep, I gave it everything. Jesus, you know I'm all in. And you want to know just how to get there. Welcome to Man Warrior King. I'm your host, Matt Hallock. Congratulations. You're among the violent taking the kingdom by force. You're among the chosen answering the call to rise above yourself. You're in the forge being stripped down and strengthened, and you will rise stronger, solid, unshakable. You are a man. You're a warrior. You are a king. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Man Warrior King podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Hallock, and the other host this morning is my wife, Corrie Hallock.
Hello.
We've done a couple of episodes together in the past, and it has turned out that each time those episodes get the most downloads and are the most popular. So it seems like everybody out there really wants to hear what Corrie has to say. But also, aside from just that, we are starting a new routine of podcasting together, at least weekly. And also, more than that, we're starting to create different programs, workshops, opportunities where both of us are we are working together to help marriages out there. Not just me solo working with just the men, but the two of us working with the two of you in your own marriage. So we're excited for it, and we've been coming up with a lot of good stuff. But today we just wanted to talk about our why, talk about what it is that is motivating us to take this next step, branching from the work that we've done with Man Warrior King so far. So, Corrie, do you want to tell us some of your why?
Oh, my. Gosh, well, yeah, every time it seems like very often you will get contacted by the wives of men reading your book, or women who have found the book and are hoping their husband will read it and listen to your podcast, join your group. And so we've been asked before multiple times to do something for both spouses. And I think for me, I want to see, well, I think for both of us, part of my why, though, is that we want to see marriages alive and thriving and having fun. I like to have fun. I think you like to have fun. And we have, even throughout some of our hardest times, we've always laughed pretty hard together. Yeah. And we tend to have a good time, even just at home, just, hanging out. And in working with couples and working with women, I just have discovered that a lot of couples have a hard time there with that, with just the having fun companionship side and thriving in friendship as well as passion. And that's what I believe marriage under the kingdom of heaven should look like, is couples coming to life and being fully who they are, fully free. And so I guess the beginning of my why is just as we have continued to want to pursue after that, as kids get older and schedules get fuller and bills get bigger and it just can feel like life is pressing in harder. We want to continue to chase after that, the freedom and the safety and the fullness of our relationship so that we have a strong foundation for the days that are laborious, and the unexpected things that happen along the way too. So that, I guess, is kind of my baseline why. So we're going after it. And anytime I talk about that with girlfriends or when we talk about it with couples, other couples are like, yes, us too. And we have often heard this from couples in faith-based marriages that they don't necessarily seem like that is the message most often being proclaimed, is that marriage is fun and good and full and joy-filled. And so we want to flip the script on that and not take the kind of, I don't know, the result of years of bad teaching that has resulted in people expecting less out of marriage than I think God expects out of marriage or has given us in marriage. Not that he expects it, but that he's given it to us and that we're even cutting the gift short of what it can be. So
Yeah. We've been through quite a bit.
Yes.
And in going through that quite a bit, it took us a lot of different attempts to try to find a path forward that would help our marriage. And it's not like, and it's so frustrating because it's not like, well, just because we're in church, it's not like, well, then we've got all the help we need every which way. It's still hard to find. And so but also aside from like that stuff, which we can talk more about, our why kind of does also just extend back to what it has seemed like God has put inside of us for a long time now. It's like everywhere we go and get involved in places, a lot of times people have said, you guys have such an anointing for marriage or for family or something like that, even if we're not like doing anything for it. But I think that all of like a lot of the hard stuff that we've been through has created that desire for us to be like, okay, well, we've learned a lot of hard lessons. It'd be nice if we could teach some people these lessons so they don't have to learn them the hard way either. But I remember, I don't know, I feel like I remember a lot of that getting birthed at our times at Bethel, actually. It seemed like it to me. I feel like, I don't know, I think whether it was from prophetic words or things from Jesus, I remember having a few different, like, visions-ish that pointed at us doing marriage stuff together in the long term as a ministry or business. And so there have been times where just with health and everything, like, how is that ever going to happen? But here we are. Here it is. It's happening. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think also like this same kind of thing will happen with many different types of things in life in church, where very often I hear marriage and parenting, those two things especially, spoken of not actually with a lot of enthusiasm and kind of just we're calling out how, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of work, buckle up, oh man, you're having a baby, you're never going to sleep again, ha ha ha. And we are downplaying the the beauty and the gift of these blessings that the Lord has given us, and we need to speak about these things with life and with enthusiasm. Like, yeah, I mean, people will just say, "Oh, you're engaged. Well, the work's about to start. Wait till the honeymoon phase is over," and all these things that are just crap. And I think we need to be very careful about what we're building with our words. And that doesn't deny that there is a lot of work to do, but everything that's worth having takes a lot of work. You don't pretty much do anything that's hard unless there's going to be a great benefit, and you don't get a whole lot of great benefit in life without some freaking hard work in the process. And so, yeah, that's kind of a given. Like, why are we focusing on that? Instead, if our marriage, if our parenting, if our home life, if our family life isn't in a place of blessing and where we're enthusiastic about it, then we need to just do some heart work and figure out why. And that's not on God, that's on us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, figure out why you don't want to talk about your life, your marriage, your job, your kids with joy and thankfulness and excitement. It might be, truth moment. It might be your heart issue and not just that parenting is so much work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we need to break down some awful ingrained mindsets about marriage, like you're saying, but we need to really, I think, raise the bar of what it is that of what we consider an acceptable marital experience.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about this, a couple months ago in our small group at church about how, like, marriages in the church should be the most enviable. Yeah. Marriages with Jesus at the core should be the most free, the most joy-filled. They should be like a city on a hill that's hard to hide.
Yeah.
And that's not just in how surrendered and obedient each spouse is to each other. That's in the heat also. And that's in how excited they are about each other and how much they like to spend time together. And just how free they are with one another and how spurred on they are by one another. The truth between them, like just openness and honesty, and that it should be hard to hide.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be hard to hide. And it should, and it's all just biblical. All we're trying to do is get back to what the word of God's standard is, rather than living according to decades of the church's standard being set, and the decades of the church's teachings that don't help in, like, not every single teaching, but a lot of them don't help, and have created some pretty tough dynamics between husbands and wives that leave both thinking they're doing the right things and yet feeling frustrated or hurt, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, because we have all of these things that tell us terrible advice. So you said that the marriages should be enviable, and it's not just because both spouses are like finally learning how to die to themselves. So that way, if we peeled back the outer layers, we might see quite a bit of like dissatisfaction, but they've done a really good job of hammering themselves into obedience and putting on a good smile, because that's what Jesus would do. So like, what is it that's good, that sets us apart, what we want for marriages from that type of a situation?
Well, we've really beat this one into a dead horse for a long time, because there are aspects of marriage where you have to surrender and, yes, die to yourself. You have to, I think that there's that in almost any relationship, at least any close relationship, right? You don't always just get to do what you want to do. And in marriage, there is this deep serving of one another and bringing what you have to offer and pushing yourself and asking for what you need. And so there's this constant giving, right? But I think we want to walk the line between jumping off the horse on that side and just, you don't get anything you want. You just die to yourself. You just, and jumping off the horse on the other side, which we were talking about yesterday, which is common in our culture. And I hear it a lot, especially in the women influencer Instagram world, which is like hard boundaries. You do you, girl. Like, you have to make yourself happy. You have to just like teach everybody how to treat you, etc. And there's truth to both of those things a little bit. Like, you do have to set boundaries. You do have to deal with your own joy needs or whatever. Sorry, she's going to come running in here.
Yeah, she is.
I can hear her. Children are not far away. So, hey, so I think we're wanting to walk the line between those two extremes of what can be helpful in some situations, but can get really selfish either direction really fast. And I think can be problematic and can actually lead to more separation within marriage rather than, because I think ultimately just dying to yourself over and over and over again and just giving your spouse what they want or whatever over and over again does actually create more separation. If it's not being done in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And of course, just like throwing up boundaries, which can quickly become walls, willy-nilly and wherever it makes you happy, that's going to create some separation too. So I want to see these things basically stacked on top of each other, and how do we do both at the same time, and how do we walk that narrow line that is, if you can find that narrow line, it's actually quite freeing, because there has to be this truth that is an openness between one another of like, I don't want to do that. And we don't have to dance around what we do and don't want. But then there's also the calling to hold all that with an open hand, and also be ready and willing to hear what your spouse needs as well, and take that before the Lord and see, what can you possibly give? And there's probably more that you can probably surrender and lean into, and more places where you can grow. You have to find that balance. And I think for that balance. Yeah, I'm a good speaker.
We're going to find some balance.
We totally are. And so I think we have spent lots of time, both of us, on both of those extremes. Yeah. And I think our journey is wanting to together, and ideally at the same time, both be walking that middle line.
Yeah. That's nice when that
sometimes
happens.
One of us is in the extreme and the other one's like, hello. Yeah.
That's
Whatever.
me pointing at you.
Whatever.
No, not really. It's
I'm
usually,
never extreme.
I'm usually in the extreme.
I'm very mellow. I'm very mid.
I'm super mid.
That's what.
And not extreme.
Apparently that's a thing kids are saying now. Yeah.
I'm
They're
basic.
Like, basic's over. Kids are like, oh, that's mid.
That's stupid. I'll just pipe up and say that's stupid if anybody tells me it's mid. So,
okay.
in my thinking about all this, like the die to yourself thing, yeah, we've talked about that a lot before, but it's gonna make some people out there mad. But we
Oh.
churchy people think that we need to be walking dead people. It is no longer, because it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live, I live by faith. But so we feel like we need to be walking dead people who, you know what, if I was just more on it, then I wouldn't be experiencing this thing that I wish was different in my marriage. I wouldn't be having this desire that's going unmet because I would only care about Jesus and Jesus alone. And but the thing is that it says that in Romans that we consider ourselves dead to sin but alive to God. And so we're not just walking dead people, we are alive people. And I think that marriages are suffering in the church because we have two people who are trying to be dead. And instead of two people who are encouraged to come fully alive, like what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, men, be fully who you are, masculine. Women, like, let your femininity go. Let it come out
In a good way. Let it
let
it
it
flow.
like unleash
not
it.
Go flow.
Not unleash it. Not say bye bye to it. But because we've talked about how like there's not a lot of marriages that we've been able to look around and be like, man, like that guy's all man and she's all woman. That looks like that's that must.
Like I was saying,
they have a lot
I
of-
feel like I see more now than in our current circle than I did about 5 or 6 years ago
yeah.
and then beyond. So, yeah.
And so I think that walking that fine line becomes easier when you're walking in your masculine or feminine identity. Because Jesus didn't mean for us to have to constantly manage our behavior. He said that rivers of living water would just flow from us. So we need to align ourselves in such a way where that really is the case.
Yeah, we do an unfortunate thing. I'm guilty of this, and I don't know if it's really even all my fault, but it has been the case that the majority of stuff I know about culture at the time of, say, Paul's letters or the early church, I've gotten from church culture only, right? And, newsflash, there were other things going on as well. And it's really important to know those things also because in like Hellenistic culture, like Greek influence, and then even into the early church with like kind of like Gnosticism, right? Or whatever, there was this battle between kind of, I think it's Hellenistic culture that was kind of like the physical is all we have. It's all about your body, right? It's all about what feels good now, right? Versus then this, was it Gnostic, or maybe like Stoicism or whatever, but like what again with this, like people jump off the horse on the other side. So then in the early church, there came some really bad teachings, late early church, like early Catholicism, etc. But where it was like, no, the highest is to reject your body, to reject all natural urges. And there's even some really awful teachings that I've read and shared with you about priests or whatever back when they could get married who like wouldn't let their wives talk to them about when they were pregnant or whatever. They didn't want to know anything about the female body because there was some teaching at that time, you can look this up, that was like the female is not only responsible for sin, right? Because, Eve sinned, but that also she was this overly sexual, basically a siren, that would draw men in. Even wives to husbands, it was like, well, we can't help it. She seduced me and now we've got 12 children, and that he had like nothing to do with that, but that.
And that somehow that was wrong.
And that somehow that was wrong of her to be acting in such natural urges to want him and want children and and so there was this cultural battle between everything is physical, so everything's okay, and everything's just for right now, versus nothing. You cut off what the body needs altogether. And so I think those things have had some strains in church culture ever since this, like, it's kind of best to almost reject yourself a little bit, especially rejecting what your physical earthly needs are. Yeah. It's better to reject them. It's more godly to reject them. When I feel like God didn't make the human body and then be like, oops, like, oh no.
There's a lot of pleasure
I made them sexy
avenues here, but
like, I hope they can.
On accident.
Or was it on accident? Or was it on accident? Or maybe even it was like to test you. Will you be able to manage this? And don't want to. Oh my gosh. But I think to me, that's been very interesting to learn about like culture or whatever. Because I can be like, oh, I don't think that our good creator, Father God was like, all right, I'm going to create you with, things that are pleasurable, but don't do it. And it's better if you don't. And, that I don't think that he's not a tricker like that. Satan is. So if it's trickery that we're attributing to the Lord, then we've kind of put ourselves in a weird position.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we've talked about before, we both believe that God is big time in favor of sex, and
yeah, I mean, it's right in there in the Bible.
The author of it, yeah, and he like wants it to be happening, and so yeah, our desire is that all aspects of marriage would come alive more. That because sometimes, and again, this is no commentary on any specific people or places or anything, but sometimes in the broad church, a good marriage looks like kind of two people who are really nice to each other
and who serve at church a lot,
and who serve at church a lot. But it's not like, oh yeah, the good marriage, they're hot for each other. They cannot help themselves.
Oh my gosh.
Well, but it should be that way. It should be that way because that's really what God made.
Yeah, no, I know.
So you just don't like.
It's just awkward because I'm a product of my culture.
And we're breaking free.
I know, it's hard.
I'm breaking it free. Is that a High School Musical song?
Oh, I don't know. We're parents of girls, so we watch a lot of High School Musical.
0 boys. I forgot what it's like to be a boy.
Even the sports in those movies, they like dance in the sport. Oh, it's sad.
So do we want to, as part of what has come up in our talks about wives, is like kind of helping men and women, husbands and wives, to be able to move towards the other in terms of their desires. Do we want to get into that right now? Do you want to save it for another time? I'm like, because it could be kind of a long discussion, which we can go.
Well, I think, we could just kind of briefly, kind of because we've been rolling around that word engage a lot, and not like being engaged like you're going to get married, but to engage with one another. Because I think we've seen that a lot, where a lot of marriages that are not thriving or having a hard time, there's been this slow move towards disengagement.
Yeah.
Or maybe a fast move towards disengagement. Even so, a move towards disengagement. And we don't mean that we do every single thing together, because we don't. And there's things that I enjoy that I like to do by myself. It's not like I need to do them by myself. It's just, I'm going to go do this now, you know. But the reason why that works for us is because we have plenty that we do together.
Yeah.
But you'll just hear so many times of couples talking about how we don't talk to each other anymore. I'm sure TV being available on all of our phones is helpful with that, right? Which we even do that on some nights. I'm like, oh, what are you watching? I'm watching Parks and Rec over here on my phone. And so sad. But so we want to see people engage, and even engage up to the point where it's difficult, like engage in the fight, engage in the conversations, like dig in to the hard places so that you can actually clean them out, you know? And so many times I just see couples who have disengaged. And I think a lot, well, no, both do it in their own ways, obviously, but the communication disengagement, the kind of there but not there disengagement, I think is very often typically a little bit more mannish, right? Kind of. And then for women, it becomes kind of a sexual and physical disengagement. And so that it just kind of, I just want to see couples be spurred on to re-engaging with one another, even if that is going to look a little messy at first.
Yeah.
And it is, because as soon as either one of you tries, the things that you aren't getting are going to get real highlighted, and it's going to feel very difficult.
Not from experience.
Good luck.
Not from, you're not,
But you
we're
should
not
really do
speaking
it.
from experience. And as we were talking about that disengagement, like the reasons why and the pain that people feel, right? We were talking like, and this is not a prescription, it's just somewhat of a pattern that a lot of times women feel like their husbands, they're hungry for more of their husbands in a emotional connective kind of a way. And a lot of times, again, not prescriptive, but a lot of times men are hungry for their wives in a sexual way. And the two can often feel like neither of those are happening. But this is something that I think is very, very worth stressing. Our desire is not, again, just to have the husband die to himself and go ahead and have good conversations with his wife. And not to have the wife die to herself and go ahead and just have sex, even though it's not really great for her. It's his thing. We hate, and I will use that word proudly, we hate the notion that either of those are just for one of the spouses.
Yeah, that what's going to make the other one happy is going to suck for you, but you need to do it anyways.
And so a good marriage is where the two die to themselves to do what the other one is to meet the other's needs. And honestly, that's a dry, dead business arrangement that has no place in the kingdom. And so our desire is to help men come alive fully so that they can become the most attractive version of themselves, like me.
Yeah, right. Yes.
And so a two-pronged approach for each spouse. Okay, men come alive and become the most attractive version of themselves so that they can be someone their wife actually does want. Okay. But also to awaken for themselves their desire for that emotional connection, for the companionship, not just thinking of it like, okay, I got to do this in order to get mine, but like, because, and then vice versa, a wife to come fully alive in all of her femininity. I don't think the husband often needs a lot of help desiring her sexually, but nonetheless, that, and to see that sex is for her and to desire her husband for her own sake, not just to be like,
you get yours,
into
girl.
a place. Yeah, exactly. For her to get hers, but not just to be in a place where like, okay, I need to do this and it's good for our marriage. Like having to force myself. Now, it doesn't mean that may not be times of like having to make a choice to engage rather than feeling like it. But the end goal is that each one's desires are like firing on all cylinders. And because that's what, I mean, speaking from a man's perspective, a man truly doesn't just want the act of sex. He wants to feel like his wife is hungry for him. And same with a wife. Like, I feel like you can tell very easily if I'm not fully engaged in a moment. And if I'm just going through the motions. And that doesn't do you any good. It doesn't make you feel loved. You want, like, we talk about how it's not about feelings, but it kind of is, because you want my feelings.
Yeah.
You want my feelings to be feeling favorable about you and our marriage and whatever situation we're in. And the husband wants his wife's feelings to be like, I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And
oh, go ahead.
so that's something that we feel is a differentiator for what we're going after. That this is not just learn how to behave in a way that helps meet your husband's or your wife's needs so they feel loved, but how do you awaken your desires?
And I do want to always come back to, because we have been so affected in the past by people saying like, oh, this is how women are and this is how men are. And at least at sometimes in my life, I was just sitting there like, wait, when they were talking about the man, they just described me. So apparently I'm a man and Matt's a woman. Well, that, okay. So,
Surprise.
But, so I always just want to come back to, anytime we're saying, you know, the man this, the woman this, first of all, that is not always across the board. Secondly, and I hope, I'm just going to say it now, and maybe it can always just go without being said, that we're also mostly talking about our experience and then the people that we have walked with so far. But there are couples where this is flipped.
Yeah.
And so I just want to always put that out there, because I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, so I'm not even womanly because that's not my typical. Because there have been times in the past where, because of stuff that was going on between us, I didn't really want you to come talk to me a lot, because I didn't want to hear what you had to say. And so when it was like, women just want their husbands to share their feelings more. And I was like, no, I need him to shut up about his feelings.
And I kind of was like, once I started changing, I was like, oh, yeah, I should probably just not talk about much of anything.
Right. So then you went over to like, oh, then I just won't talk. And I was like, okay, we've gone too far. So there can be times and seasons also where this isn't the case.
And that's part of like that specific thing is part of men coming alive. It's like, okay, you're not really being fully the man that you're meant to be when you're spewing your emotions on your wife.
Because you weren't spewing them to me in order to connect. You were spewing them to me in order for me to come make you feel better.
Yeah.
And so that was a very needy kind of engagement, and that wasn't going to work.
Which is why it can't just be like, you can't do marriage work without doing individual work.
Right.
You have to be a man.
But in the same hand, or in the other hand, or at the same time, I don't know how to say this best, you can't actually just do individual work and expect your marriage to change either. You do have to do some together work. So, and sometimes there isn't time, to like be like, okay, well, in 2023, I'm just going to focus on me. And then in 2024, we'll do the marriage.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of have to happen at the same time. So good luck with that. But so you get to work on yourself and your marriage at the same time. And you have to figure out how. Because if you put yourself aside and just work on the marriage, then you're not bringing your full self in to be part of this. Sorry, now I'm super distracted because I can hear Emerson yelling at her sister. Was that clear though? Kind of?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
There's not time. There's basically, and we kind of were talking like
It has
this,
to be
like
both, and it has to be at
we're-
the same time.
everybody, we don't have any more time. Like, please just register that. We're out of time.
Marriages, yes.
The someday thing is evil.
Yep.
It's not a someday thing. It's right now.
Marriages, the family, sexuality, femininity, masculinity, these things are slipping through our culture's fingers very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And so we can go along with the flow and hope that we slowly change this by our, voting procedures, I suppose, and, whatever. Or we can just start living drastically. I mean, we are in the world, but not of it. We are aliens here, and so we should look like it. Our marriages should look like it. Our sexuality should look like it. We will not convince people to walk along with Jesus if we're just as sick as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. There's this idea that God gets a lot of glory the more we suffer. And yes, we can glorify God in our suffering, but also, like, the way he established it for the people of Israel was like, this is going to be a prosperous nation. Everybody else
People are
around
gonna
is
come
going to know
flocking to you.
that I am a God who's worth following. And does our marriage look like our God is worth following? Because that's, and culture things, yeah, but also in your own personal life. Like, you're out of time. Does your God look like he's worth following? Because if not, don't settle anymore. What are you doing? You're going to waste another year. You're going to waste another couple of years. Like, just burn the ships.
And then let's figure. So then our why is to figure out how, and to not just philosophize about it, but to take action on it. Because we want to take action on it for us. We want to take action on it for the couples we walk with. We also want to take action on it for our children's sake, for their someday marriages, for the church. The church as a whole needs to be a beacon right now because, yikes, people need a beacon to look to. People need a lighthouse right now, and it needs to be the church. And when they get there, if it's filled with a bunch of people who are also sick and dying, then that's going to be that we're not going to have what we need to pour out. So when people come and ask you, why are you still married? Why are you this? Why are you so happy? You need to have an answer for them. So
I think we'll probably wrap this up, but the one aspect to this that we haven't talked about yet, which maybe we could talk about next time, is in all of this, there is also the supernatural kingdom element as well. So this is not just a do-it-yourself thing. And I feel like for me, especially, not me especially as in between me and Corrie, but just especially right now in me, I feel like God's trying to teach me some more about kind of seeing the kingdom active in our lives. And this journey towards a better marriage can be 100% spiced up by the kingdom, by the power of the Holy Spirit coming in and changing things. But it's not, I mean, if you've been praying and you haven't seen anything, it's not like we have to get out of the idea that I just pray and beg and plead and hope that God changes my marriage and then just sit back and wait for him to do it. Because if you have been watching, you probably have been noticing that he hasn't answered those prayers. So in all of this too, we need to learn, how do we pray to see answers, and how do we act to activate answers as well? So
it's a journey to figure out with the Lord, where do we surrender and where do we fight? And and when to do which. And how to do which. Sometimes fighting is surrender. And sometimes surrender is fighting. And sometimes fighting is fighting. So it's very nuanced, and it's nuanced per couple, and it's nuanced per person in the marriage. And so we just want to walk with people and just continually call out the hope and like we're hiking up a mountain, like there is a peak up there and we're going to it, like come with us. We're gonna go get it. We're gonna go see the view. We're gonna go and we're gonna go this way because we at least have figured out that this kind of works.
Yeah.
We just want to call out the worth in one another and in marriage and in doing life with the Lord and really truly and coming before him and being like, okay, now we're going to do our part and you do your part. Let's live in glory.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Amen. So, thanks for joining us today. By the way, I have some openings on my calendar if you are wanting some help in all of this process, particularly as a man, not as a woman. I only work with men. Women, you're welcome to contact us because every now and then Corrie has some availability
in all my free time
to work with some women too. But particularly I'm speaking to men. If you feel like you are needing help in becoming that kind of man who can foster that kind of intimacy, connection, and desire in your marriage that you wish was there right now, you can contact me through my website, manwarriorking.com. Also, in the show notes, I'll post a link to my calendar where you can grab a slot for a free 30-minute call where we just get to work talking about what you need to talk about and decide whether an actual full-on coaching program is good for you. Also, if it suits you better, you can join the Ranks of Adullam, the monthly membership where we meet Tuesday evenings and we go after everything about life. And especially things like what we're talking about, becoming an alive man. We go after how to connect with the kingdom, right now we've been talking about praying and why we don't see answers to prayer and how that's not okay, and marriage. So there's that too. There'll be a link to that in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. Bless you, Corrie. Do you have another final thing?
Yeah, just because also moving into the new year, we are going to be starting some things for couples, like you were saying at the beginning of the episode. So look for those things, starting off with, it doesn't have a name yet, but a couples goal setting workshop for 2023, just a time to get your hearts on the same page. This is something that we've done for a couple years now, that is important to me probably. Well, it's important to you, but I was kind of the driver of it. But I really like to have a direction for us as a couple for each year, just like a verse that is our kind of core verse for the year of what we feel like the Lord is building into our relationship. And then from there, shooting off into just like some goals that we have, some things that we want to see come to life. And then we present those things to the Lord, and just gives us an anchor to come back to. And then within that, I just want to also say, like, we want to walk with your marriages and serve you. So in that same vein of sending Matt a message, blow up his inbox, but also tell us, what do you need? What does your marriage need? And what are you up against? And what would be beneficial for you guys? Like, yeah. We're curious because it's also just helpful to know what things, because we have things where we're like, man, I wish someone had told us such and such about 15 years ago. So what are your things there? What kinds of things have you needed and are you needing? And let's start going after them together.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for listening. Bless you. Peace out.
This is Matt Hallock signing off and thanking you again for being a part of the Man Warrior King community. If you want more, head over to manwarriorking.com. And please remember to take just a couple seconds to subscribe on iTunes and to leave a 5-star rating and a review so that more and more men can join us as we become awesome. You are a kingdom man. Go out, take more ground, push back darkness. Remember, you bring value into your home, your work, and your circle. You are not a taker, you are a giver. Abundance is your atmosphere.